Hello there, dear evening wanderer. Whether you're settling into your favorite chair with a warm cup of tea, lying beneath soft blankets as the day's worries fade away, or perhaps stealing a quiet moment in the gentle glow of your screen while the world around you grows still, welcome. Welcome to this peaceful corner of curiosity, where we explore the profound and beautiful mysteries of existence at exactly the pace your tired mind needs. I'm genuinely curious, where in this vast world are you joining me tonight? Are you in a cozy bedroom where streetlights cast gentle shadows through your window? Perhaps you're in a different time zone entirely, where morning coffee steam mingles with your contemplation. Or maybe you're somewhere in between, in that magical twilight hour when day becomes night. And what time is it in your little corner of the universe? There's something wonderfully intimate about sharing these quiet moments across space and time, isn't there? Tonight, we're going to embark on a gentle exploration of one of life's most universal experiences. Something so fundamental that every living thing, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, from the ancient redwood trees to you and me, participates in this quiet dance. We're going to wander through the mystery of aging, not as a clinical examination, but as a poetic journey through time itself, as it leaves its gentle fingerprints on all living things. Before we begin our soft stroll through this fascinating landscape, if you find yourself enchanted by these quiet evening explorations, perhaps you might consider leaving. A gentle thumbs up, it's like a small beacon that helps other night wanderers find their way to these peaceful moments of learning. And if you'd like to make these contemplative journeys a regular part of your evenings, that little subscribe button would welcome you into our growing community of curious souls who find beauty in the questions that emerge when the world grows quiet. Now, I must offer you a gentle warning, and I say this with a knowing smile. Sometimes these explorations become so quietly captivating that instead of drifting off to sleep, you might find yourself wonderfully awake, marveling at the intricate beauty of existence itself. If that happens, well, consider it a delightful side effect of curiosity. We can always try again another evening, can't we? So let's begin our gentle inquiry into aging, this universal choreography of time and life, this slow and magnificent transformation that connects us to every living thing that has ever drawn breath on this remarkable planet. Let's take a gentle stroll through the garden of understanding, shall we? Imagine for a moment that you're holding two photographs. Perhaps they're sitting on your nightstand right now, or tucked away in an album somewhere nearby. In one photograph, you see yourself as a child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with skin unmarked by time, eyes bright with the particular clarity that belongs to the young, hair catching light with an almost ethereal gleam. In the other photograph, you see yourself as you are now, or perhaps as you imagine you might be in years to come. What is it that whispers between these two images? What invisible storyteller has been quietly narrating the chapters of change written across your face, your hands, the way you move through the world? This dear evening companion is aging, not merely the accumulation of years, but something far more profound and mysterious. Aging is like the slow, patient work of a master artist who never reveals their hand all at once. It's as if time itself were a gentle river, and every living thing, every flower in your garden, every pet who has shared your life, every human who has walked this earth, floats along this river, each of us transformed by the journey in ways both visible and hidden. But here's what makes this mystery so beautifully complex. Aging isn't simply about growing old. It's not just about wrinkles or gray hair, or the way our knees might creak when we stand up on a chilly morning. No, aging is something far more fundamental. It's the way that time, like a patient teacher, writes lessons into the very fabric of life itself. Think about this for a moment. As you settle more comfortably wherever you are, aging happens at every level of existence, from the tiniest components of our cells to the grand sweep of our entire lives. It's happening right now as you listen to these words. It's happening so gently, so gradually, that we rarely notice it moment by moment. Like the way the hands of a clock move, visible only when we look away and then look back again. In the scientific world, we might define aging as the progressive decline in physiological function that occurs over time, leading to increased susceptibility to environmental challenges and ultimately to death. But oh, how dry that definition feels when we're sitting here in the quiet evening, contemplating this magnificent mystery. Let's think of it instead as the way life choreographs change, sometimes leading to decline, yes, but also to wisdom, to depth, to the kind of beauty that can only emerge through the patient alchemy of years. Consider the old oak tree that might stand outside your window, or one you remember from childhood. If you could ask that tree about aging, what stories might it tell? Of seasons that have painted and repainted its leaves, of storms weathered and droughts endured, of the slow, patient accumulation of rings that mark not. Just time passed, but time lived, time survived. Time transformed into strength and endurance, and a kind of quiet majesty that only comes with years. Or imagine this, every cell in your body is like a tiny clock, keeping time in its own unique way. Some of these cellular clocks tick quickly. The cells lining your stomach replace themselves every few days, like eager understudies, constantly stepping onto the stage of your body. Others tick more slowly. Your heart muscle cells, the patient drummers of your existence, may last for decades, steadily beating out the rhythm of your life. But here's where the mystery deepens. Like twilight shadows growing longer across a familiar landscape, not all living things age in the same way. Some barely age at all, at least not in ways we would recognize. There are creatures in our oceans, like certain species of jellyfish, that seem to have discovered a secret we're still trying to understand: the ability to reset their biological clocks, to return to younger versions of themselves, like magical beings from fairy tales who can choose their age. And then there are the trees. Oh, the trees. Some of the bristlecone pines growing in the mountains of California have been alive for over 4,000 years. They were saplings when the pyramids were being built, young trees when Christ walked the earth, middle-aged when Shakespeare was writing his sonnets. They age, certainly, but so slowly, so patiently, that their aging spans millennia rather than decades. This raises a question that might flutter through your drowsy mind like a gentle moth. If some living things age barely at all, or age across such vast time frames, what is it about us, about humans, about mammals, about many of the creatures we share our world with, that makes our aging so much more visible, so much more urgent? The answer, like most beautiful answers, is both simple and infinitely complex. We age because we are the products of a particular kind of evolutionary story, one that balanced the benefits of staying alive for a long time against the benefits of reproducing and passing our genes to the next generation. We age because we are made of particular kinds of cells that, over time, accumulate tiny damages, like books that slowly collect dust and worn pages from being read and reread. We age because we burn brightly. Our metabolism, our energy, our passionate engagement with life itself generates what scientists call oxidative stress, like the way a candle flame slowly consumes the wax that feeds it. We are, in a sense, the candles of the natural world, beautiful, warm, illuminating, but always trading our substance for our light. But aging is not just a biological process. It's also, perhaps even more fundamentally, a deeply human experience that connects us across cultures, across centuries, across all the artificial boundaries we sometimes create. Every human who has ever lived has pondered the mystery of growing older. Every culture has developed its own poetry, its own wisdom, its own ways of understanding what it means to move through time. The ancient Greeks had two words for time that can help us understand aging in a richer way. They spoke of chronos, clock time, calendar time, the mechanical ticking of moments that we measure and count. But they also spoke of kairos, experiential time, meaningful time, the kind of time that stretches when we're in love, or contracts when we're deeply absorbed in something beautiful. Aging happens in both kinds of time. Yes, our bodies track chronos, our cells divide according to biological schedules, our telomeres shorten like mechanical timers, our organs accumulate wear like any complex machine used over many years. But aging also happens in kairos time, in the way our perspectives deepen, our priorities shift, our capacity for certain kinds of understanding grows, even as other capacities might diminish. Think about your own relationship with time as you've moved through your life. Remember being a child, when summer vacation felt infinite, when waiting for Christmas seemed to take forever, when a year was an enormous span representing a significant portion of your entire existence. Now perhaps you've noticed how time seems to move differently. How years can slip by with surprising speed, how you can look up from the busyness of life and discover that seasons have changed without your noticing. This isn't just a trick of perception, though perception is certainly part of it. This is aging, working in the dimension of consciousness itself, changing not just our bodies but our very relationship with time, with possibility, with the way we understand our place in the grand story of existence. And here's something wonderful to contemplate as you rest there, in your evening stillness. Aging connects us not just to other humans, but to the entire community of life on Earth. The processes that age your cells are fundamentally similar to the processes that age a mouse, a whale, a tree, even a bacterium. We are all part of the same grand experiment in what it means to be alive over time. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you will be slightly different than you are right now. Not just older by a few hours, but changed at the cellular level, renewed in some ways, aged in others. Some of your cells will have divided, creating fresh new versions of themselves. Others will have accumulated tiny amounts of damage. Your immune system will have worked through the night like a dedicated cleaning crew, repairing what it can and clearing away what needs to be removed. This is the daily miracle of aging, that it is not simply decay, not simply loss, but a constant, dynamic process of change, renewal, adaptation, and yes, sometimes decline. You are not the same person, literally at the cellular level, that you were 7 years ago. Most of your cells have been replaced at least once since then, yet you remain you, carrying forward your memories, your identity, your unique way of seeing the world. This paradox, that we remain ourselves while constantly changing, is one of the deepest mysteries of aging and of consciousness itself. How does the river of your identity remain constant while the water is always flowing, always new? As we settle deeper into our exploration, let this gentle thought accompany you. Aging is not something that happens to you, but something you participate in. Every breath you take, every meal you eat, every moment of sleep, every laugh, every tear. All of these are part of the collaborative dance between you and time itself. Chapter 2. The Cellular Clock, Telomeres and the Ticking of Our Biological Timepiece. Now, let's wander deeper into the hidden chambers of this mystery, shall we? Imagine that you could shrink yourself down to an impossibly tiny size, smaller than the period at the end of this sentence, smaller than a grain of sand, smaller than anything your eyes have ever seen, and float gently into one of your own cells. What a magical journey that would be, like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole into a wonderland of molecular machinery. In this microscopic realm, you would find yourself in a bustling city of sorts, a place where millions of tiny workers go about their business with purposeful precision. You might drift past the mitochondria, those remarkable cellular power plants that transform the food you eat into the energy that keeps you alive. You might glide by the ribosomes, like microscopic factories, churning out the proteins that build and rebuild your body every moment of every day. But at the very heart of this cellular city, in its most protected chamber, you would find something truly extraordinary. The nucleus, where your genetic story is written and rewritten, where the deepest secrets of your aging are quietly kept. Here, carefully coiled and folded like ancient scrolls in a sacred library, you would find your chromosomes, those remarkable structures that carry the genetic instructions for everything that makes you uniquely you. And here, dear evening wanderer, we encounter one of the most beautiful and melancholy mechanisms of aging ever discovered, the telomeres. Imagine, if you will, that each chromosome is like a shoelace. You know how the plastic tips at the ends of shoelaces prevent them from fraying? Telomeres are like those protective caps, but instead of plastic, they're made of DNA, special sequences that protect the precious genetic information in your chromosomes from damage and degradation. But here's where the story becomes both fascinating and a little heartbreaking. Every time one of your cells divides, every time it creates a copy of itself to repair tissue, to grow, to replace old cells that have worn out, the telomeres get a little bit shorter. It's as if each cell division clips off a tiny piece of those protective caps, like a patient bookbinder who must trim a little from the edges each time a book is rebound. This discovery, made by scientists Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and Jack Szostak, who won the Nobel Prize for this work, revealed something profound about the nature of aging. Here, written into the very architecture of our cells, was a kind of molecular calendar, a biological clock that counts not the hours or days, but the number of times our cells have renewed themselves. Leonard Hayflick, a scientist studying cell division back in the 1960s, made a curious observation. He found that normal human cells in laboratory dishes could only divide about 50 to 70 times before they stopped dividing altogether, entering what we now call cellular senescence, a state where they remain alive but can no longer reproduce. This seemed strange at first. Why would healthy cells simply stop dividing when they appeared to have everything they needed to continue? The answer, it turned out, lay in those telomeres. Each cell division shortened them slightly, and when they became too short, the cell received a signal that its time for reproduction was over. It was as if each cell carried a slowly burning fuse, predetermined to eventually signal the end of its dividing days. Now you might wonder, as you rest there in your evening contemplation, why nature would design such a system. Why would our cells come equipped with what seems like a built-in expiration date? The answer reveals the profound wisdom hidden in what might first appear to be a design flaw. Telomeres serve as a crucial protection against cancer. You see, cancer occurs when cells begin dividing uncontrollably, ignoring the usual signals that tell them when to stop. By limiting the number of times normal cells can divide, telomeres help prevent potentially dangerous cells from reproducing indefinitely. In a sense, telomeres are like wise guardians, willing to accept the eventual slowing and stopping of cellular renewal in order to protect us from the chaos of uncontrolled growth. But the story of telomeres becomes even more intriguing when we discover that not all cells are bound by this limitation. There's an enzyme called telomerase. Think of it as a molecular repair kit that can rebuild those protective chromosomal caps. Most of our adult cells have very little telomerase activity, allowing their telomeres to shorten with each division. But some cells, certain stem cells, reproductive cells, and unfortunately, most cancer cells, maintain high levels of telomerase activity, allowing them to divide far more times than normal cells. This creates a fascinating paradox. The very mechanism that could potentially extend our cellular lifespan indefinitely is the same mechanism that makes cancer cells so dangerous. It's as if we're walking a tightrope between aging and cancer, with telomeres helping to maintain that delicate balance. Recent research has revealed even more nuanced layers to this story. Scientists have discovered that telomere length can be influenced by lifestyle factors in ways that would have seemed magical just a few decades ago. Chronic stress, poor sleep, lack of exercise, and unhealthy diets can accelerate telomere shortening. Meanwhile, meditation, regular exercise, good nutrition, and strong social connections can slow the process and, in some cases, even appear to lengthen telomeres. Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, one of the discoverers of telomerase, has written beautifully about how our daily choices ripple down into the molecular level of our existence. She describes how chronic stress hormones like cortisol can interfere with telomerase activity, effectively speeding up our cellular clocks. Meanwhile, the sense of purpose and connection that comes from meaningful relationships and activities seems to have the opposite effect, slowing down cellular aging in measurable ways. This connection between our psychological and social experiences and our cellular aging process is one of the most remarkable discoveries in modern biology. It suggests that aging is not simply a mechanical process unfolding according to a predetermined schedule, but something far more dynamic. A process that responds to how we live, how we love, how we find meaning in our days. Think about this as you settle into your evening rest. Right now, in billions of cells throughout your body, tiny molecular workers are carefully maintaining your telomeres. In some cells, these protective caps are being gradually shortened. In others, particularly in certain stem cell populations, they may be getting repaired and restored. This microscopic dance between preservation and expenditure is happening without your conscious awareness, yet it's influenced by every aspect of your life, from the quality of your sleep to the depth of your friendships. There's something almost poetic about the fact that our cellular aging process responds to love and connection. When we feel deeply connected to others, when we experience what researchers call eudaimonic well-being, a sense of meaning and purpose in life, our cells seem to age more slowly. It's as if our telomeres can somehow sense the difference between mere survival and truly thriving. But telomeres are just one part of the aging story. They're like one instrument in a vast molecular orchestra, playing their part in the complex symphony of how we change over time. Some scientists think of telomeres as more of a marker of cellular aging rather than its primary cause, like the gray hair that signals age without necessarily causing other aspects of aging. Other researchers are investigating whether the cellular aging process might be more fundamentally driven by the accumulation of damaged proteins, the gradual loss of cellular quality control mechanisms, or changes in the way our genes are expressed over time. It's quite possible that telomeres, important as they are just one player in a much larger and more complex story. As you contemplate this cellular clock ticking away in the depths of your being, there's something wonderfully mysterious about the fact that time seems to be woven into the very structure of life itself. We don't just experience time psychologically. We are temporal beings at the molecular level, carrying within every cell a record of our journey through the years. Some philosophers and scientists have suggested that this biological relationship with time is what distinguishes living things from non-living matter. A rock can exist for millions of years without changing significantly, but every living thing carries within itself the marks of its own history, the accumulated traces of its dance with time. And here's a thought that might accompany you into sleep. Those telomeres shortening in your cells tonight are not just markers of time passing, but evidence of life fully lived. Each shortened telomere represents moments of renewal, of growth, of your body's constant work to maintain and repair itself. In a strange way, the wearing down of our cellular clocks is a testament to the vitality of life itself, proof that we are not static beings, but dynamic participants in the ongoing creativity of existence. Tomorrow, when you wake up, billions of your cells will have divided through the night, each one offering up a tiny portion of its telomeres in service of keeping you healthy and renewed. It's a kind of cellular generosity, a biological wisdom that trades a bit of future longevity for present vitality and protection. Sleep well, knowing that your cellular clocks are keeping perfect time, measuring not just the passage of years, but the accumulation of life fully experienced. As the evening deepens around us, let's wander into one of the most puzzling questions in all of biology, a mystery that has captivated scientists and philosophers for generations. Picture this conundrum. If evolution tends to favor traits that help organisms survive and reproduce, why on earth would it preserve aging, which seems to work directly against survival? It's like discovering that nature, that master engineer who has crafted everything from the soaring efficiency of bird wings to the incredible complexity of the human brain, deliberately built self-destruct mechanisms into every living thing. At first glance, it seems almost absurd, doesn't it? Like finding out that the most brilliant architect in the world insists on designing all their buildings to slowly crumble over time. This puzzle has spawned what we might call the aging paradox, and solving it has led scientists on a fascinating journey through the deep logic of evolution itself. As you settle more comfortably into your evening rest, let me guide you through this intellectual adventure, a story that reveals something profound about the very nature of life, death, and the strange wisdom hidden in our mortality. The mystery becomes even more intriguing when we consider that aging is not universal in the living world. We've touched on this already, but let's linger here for a moment. Some bacteria can potentially live forever, dividing endlessly without accumulating damage. Certain jellyfish can reverse their aging process, returning to juvenile states and beginning their lives anew. Some trees live for thousands of years, aging so slowly that their mortality becomes almost theoretical. So why do we, along with most mammals, birds, and many other complex organisms, age relatively quickly and inevitably? Why did evolution allow, or even favor, our mortal design? The first serious attempt to solve this puzzle came from a brilliant evolutionary biologist named Peter Medawar in the 1950s. Medawar proposed what we now call the mutation accumulation theory. Imagine, he suggested, that harmful genetic mutations are constantly arising in populations, like typos creeping into copies of a book as it's reproduced over and over again. Now, here's the crucial insight. Natural selection is very good at eliminating mutations that cause problems early in life, before an organism has had a chance to reproduce. These are like typos on the first page of a book. They're noticed immediately and corrected in future editions, But mutations that only cause problems late in life, after an organism has already reproduced, are like typos on the very last page. They're much less likely to be noticed and corrected because fewer readers make it that far. According to Medawar's theory, aging might simply be the accumulation of these late-acting harmful mutations, genetic problems that natural selection hasn't been able to eliminate because they don't interfere with reproduction. It's as if our bodies come with a collection of time-delayed genetic bombs set to go off only after we've passed our genes to the next generation. But this was just the beginning of the story. A few years later, George Williams proposed an even more provocative idea called antagonistic pleiotropy. This wonderful phrase describes genes that have beneficial effects early in life but harmful effects later on. It's like a medicine that cures your headache today but gives you stomach problems next week. Williams suggested that evolution might actually favor genes that enhance early life fitness even if they cause aging later on. Why? Because in the harsh realities of the natural world, most organisms don't live long enough for late life effects to matter much. Better to be vigorous and successful at reproducing early, even if it means paying a price in old age that you're unlikely to reach anyway. Think about this for a moment as you rest there in your evening quiet. There might be genes in your body right now that made you stronger, faster, more attractive, or more fertile when you were young, but that are contributing to various aspects of aging now that you're older. It's a kind of biological mortgage, benefits enjoyed early in life, payments due later. Some fascinating examples of this have been discovered. The male hormone testosterone, for instance, enhances muscle mass, bone density, and reproductive capacity in young men, all clearly beneficial for survival and reproduction. But that same testosterone may contribute to increased risk of prostate cancer and cardiovascular disease later in life. Similarly, the cellular processes that promote rapid growth and development in youth may contribute to cancer risk in older age. Then, in the 1970s, evolutionary biologist Thomas Kirkwood proposed what might be the most elegant solution to the aging paradox, the disposable soma theory. This theory suggests that aging results from evolution's cost-benefit analysis between investing energy in maintaining the body versus investing energy in reproduction. Imagine that every organism has a limited energy budget, like having a fixed amount of money to spend each month. That energy can be allocated in different ways. Some can be spent on maintaining and repairing the body, what Kirkwood called the soma, and some can be spent on reproduction. According to this theory, evolution has calibrated this allocation to maximize the total number of offspring an organism can produce over its lifetime. Here's the crucial insight. In most natural environments, the chances of survival decrease over time due to predation, disease, accidents, and environmental challenges. This means that investing too heavily in long-term body maintenance might be wasteful, like buying an expensive extended warranty on a car that's likely to be totaled in an accident anyway. Instead, evolution finds the optimal balance. Invest just enough in body maintenance to survive to reproductive age and produce offspring. But don't waste energy on maintaining the body much beyond that point. The result? We age because our bodies are designed to be disposable, highly functional for our reproductive years, but not built to last indefinitely. This theory helps explain why different species age at such different rates. Mice, who face high predation pressures and rarely survive more than a year in the wild, age rapidly and invest heavily in early reproduction. Elephants, who have few natural predators and can expect to live for decades, age much more slowly and invest in long-term body maintenance. Humans, with our large brains and extended childcare needs, evolved to live long enough to raise multiple offspring to independence, but not indefinitely. The disposable soma theory also explains why reproduction itself can be costly in terms of aging. Think about Pacific salmon, who pour all their energy into a single massive reproductive effort and then die immediately afterward. Or consider human women, who may experience accelerated cellular aging during pregnancy as their bodies redirect resources to support developing offspring. But here's where the story becomes even more fascinating. These evolutionary theories suggest that aging is not a bug in the system of life. It's a feature. Aging might actually be beneficial for species survival, even as it's detrimental to individual survival. How could this be? Consider this. In a world of limited resources, immortal individuals might prevent evolutionary adaptation by taking up space and resources that could be used by new generations with potentially better genetic combinations. Aging and death clear the stage for new genetic experiments, for novel solutions to environmental challenges, for the ongoing creativity of evolution itself. Some scientists have suggested that aging serves as a kind of evolutionary turnover mechanism, ensuring that populations remain genetically diverse and adaptable. In this view, we age not in spite of evolution, but because of it. Our mortality is the price we pay for being part of an evolutionary process that creates endless novelty and adaptation. This perspective can be both humbling and comforting. It suggests that our individual aging and mortality serves a purpose larger than ourselves, that we are part of an ancient and ongoing creative process that has produced all the remarkable diversity of life on Earth. Recent research has added even more nuance to these evolutionary theories. Scientists studying extremely long-lived organisms have discovered that even seemingly immortal creatures like certain jellyfish and trees do eventually show signs of aging under careful examination. This suggests that some degree of aging might be an inevitable consequence of the fundamental physics and chemistry of life itself. Meanwhile, studies of human populations have revealed that our aging patterns are still shaped by evolutionary pressures. People from populations that historically faced high childhood mortality tend to show faster reproductive maturation, but also earlier signs of aging. Those from populations with historically lower mortality show the opposite pattern, later reproduction, but slower aging. This means that the evolutionary theories of aging aren't just abstract scientific ideas, they're still playing out in human populations today. Our aging patterns carry within them the echoes of our ancestors' struggles for survival across countless generations. As you contemplate this evolutionary perspective on aging, there's something profound to consider. You are the product of an unbroken chain of successful reproduction stretching back billions of years. Every one of your ancestors, no matter how they aged or when they died, lived long enough and well enough to produce offspring that eventually led to you. In a sense, you carry within your aging body the accumulated wisdom of evolution itself. Millions of years of natural experiments in the optimal balance between reproduction and maintenance, between individual longevity and species adaptation. Your aging is not a failure of design, but evidence of a design that has been tested and refined across geological timescales. And here's a thought that might accompany you towards sleep. If aging serves larger evolutionary purposes, then perhaps there's meaning to be found in our own aging process. Not just biological meaning, but existential meaning. The possibility that our own mortality contributes something valuable to the ongoing story of life on Earth. Perhaps the wisdom that comes with age, the accumulated experience and perspective that older individuals bring to their communities, represents evolution's way of balancing the costs and benefits of aging. Maybe human longevity evolved not just to help us raise our own offspring, but to serve as repositories of cultural knowledge and wisdom for our entire species. Sleep well, knowing that your aging body is not breaking down randomly, but following ancient patterns refined by millions of years of evolutionary testing. You are aging exactly as countless generations of your ancestors aged, as part of life's grand experiment in balancing individual mortality with species immortality. Let's embark now on a gentle journey around our remarkable planet, visiting the diverse inhabitants of Earth to discover their wonderfully varied relationships with time and aging. As you rest there in your evening stillness, imagine that we're setting out on a naturalist's expedition, not through jungles or mountains, but through the fascinating landscape of different aging strategies that life has evolved. Our first stop might be the sun-dappled tide pools along a rocky coastline, where we encounter one of nature's most mysterious and enchanting creatures, Turritopsis dohrnii, sometimes called the immortal jellyfish. Picture this tiny, translucent being, no larger than your fingernail, drifting gracefully through the water like a living glass bell. What makes this jellyfish so remarkable is its extraordinary relationship with aging. When faced with physical damage, starvation, old age, or disease, instead of dying, it does something that sounds like pure magic. It reverses its aging process entirely. The mature jellyfish transforms backward through its life stages, becoming younger and younger until it reaches its juvenile polyp stage, essentially being reborn as its own offspring. Imagine if you could do something similar, if when faced with the challenges of aging, you could somehow reset your biological clock and return to childhood, retaining all your memories but regaining your youthful body. It sounds like science fiction, yet this little jellyfish performs this miracle routinely. Scientists have observed individual jellyfish undergoing this reversal dozens of times in laboratory settings, potentially making them biologically immortal. But here's what's particularly fascinating about the immortal jellyfish. They achieve this remarkable feat by completely reorganizing their cellular structure. Through a process called transdifferentiation, their specialized adult cells somehow remember how to become unspecialized stem cells, which then redifferentiate into the cell types needed for their juvenile form. It's as if a concert pianist could somehow transform their hands back into a child's hands, then relearn how to play over and over again. Now let's travel from the ocean to the ancient forests, where we encounter the masters of longevity, the bristlecone pines. High in the mountains of California and Nevada, these gnarled and weathered trees have been quietly aging for millennia. The oldest known bristlecone pine, nicknamed Methuselah, has been alive for over 4,800 years. Think about this for a moment. This tree was a sapling when the Great Pyramids of Egypt were young monuments. It was already centuries old when Rome was founded. It watched the rise and fall of entire civilizations while adding ring after ring to its ancient trunk, growing so slowly that some years it might add only a few cells to its circumference. What's remarkable about these trees is not just their longevity, but how they achieve it. Bristlecone pines grow in some of the harshest environments on Earth: high altitude, extreme temperature fluctuations, poor soil, and intense UV radiation. Yet these challenging conditions may actually contribute to their longevity. The harsh environment keeps them growing very slowly, which means they're less likely to accumulate the kinds of growth-related damage that affect faster-growing organisms. Moreover, the wood of bristlecone pines is incredibly dense and resinous, making it highly resistant to insects, fungi, and decay. Even after parts of the tree die, the remaining living tissue can continue to survive for centuries more. Some bristlecone pines are more dead than alive, with just a narrow strip of living bark and wood keeping the tree functioning, while the rest has been preserved like natural sculpture. From the high mountains, let's travel to the warm, shallow seas, where we encounter another master of longevity, the Greenland shark. These massive creatures, which can grow to over 20 feet long, have recently been discovered to be among the longest-lived vertebrates on Earth. By analyzing proteins in their eye lenses, proteins that are formed before birth and never replaced, scientists have estimated that some Greenland sharks may live for over 400 years. Imagine a shark alive today that was swimming in Arctic waters when George Washington was president, that has survived the entire Industrial Revolution, 2 world wars, and the space age. These sharks grow incredibly slowly, perhaps only about a centimeter per year, and don't even reach sexual maturity until they're around 150 years old. The secret to their longevity may lie in their cold, slow lifestyle. Living in near-freezing Arctic waters, their metabolism runs incredibly slowly, which may reduce the accumulation of cellular damage over time. They're like living examples of the old saying, the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long. Except they've chosen to burn very dimly indeed, conserving their energy for centuries of patient existence. But it's not just marine creatures and ancient trees that have fascinating relationships with aging. Consider the naked mole rat, one of the most unusual mammals on Earth. These wrinkled, hairless creatures live in underground colonies like insects, and they seem to have solved several problems that other mammals face with aging. Naked mole rats can live over 30 years, an extraordinarily long time for a rodent their size. Most mice live only a year or two, but naked mole rats show remarkable resistance to cancer, heart disease, and many other age-related conditions. They maintain their fertility throughout their long lives, they don't develop arthritis, and they show few signs of cognitive decline, even in extreme old age. Scientists studying naked mole rats have discovered several potential secrets to their longevity. Their cells are unusually resistant to becoming cancerous, possibly due to a unique mechanism that prevents overcrowding at the cellular level. They also have enhanced DNA repair mechanisms and unusual resistance to oxidative stress. Some researchers think their strange lifestyle, living in low-oxygen underground environments, may have selected for enhanced cellular repair mechanisms that help them age more slowly. Then there are the organisms that seem to cheat aging in even more dramatic ways. Consider the tardigrades, microscopic animals sometimes called water bears, that can survive almost anything. Freezing, boiling, radiation, the vacuum of space, complete dehydration. When faced with extreme conditions, tardigrades can enter a state called cryptobiosis, essentially shutting down all biological processes and becoming as inert as a grain of sand. In this state, tardigrades don't age at all. Time essentially stops for them biologically. They can remain in cryptobiosis for decades, then rehydrate and resume their lives as if no time has passed. It's the closest thing we know to actual time travel, the ability to skip forward through time without aging. Some plant seeds exhibit similar abilities. Lotus seeds found in ancient lake beds have germinated after lying dormant for over 1,000 years. During their dormancy, aging essentially stopped. The seeds neither developed nor deteriorated, preserved in a state between life and death until conditions became favorable for growth. But perhaps the most intriguing aging strategy belongs to a group of fish called daffodil cichlids, found in Lake Tanganyika in Africa. These fish have evolved a remarkable social approach to aging. The older, larger fish actively help younger, smaller fish survive by sharing food and providing protection from predators. This challenges our usual assumptions about aging and competition. Instead of older individuals competing with younger ones for resources, these cichlids have evolved a system where aging brings wisdom and social responsibility. The oldest fish become the protectors and teachers of their community, suggesting that aging might sometimes evolve to serve social rather than just individual purposes. Even more remarkably, some trees exhibit what we might call social aging. In a forest, older trees often become mother trees that share nutrients with younger trees through underground fungal networks. These ancient trees, instead of hoarding resources as they age, become increasingly generous, supporting the entire forest community through their accumulated wisdom and connections. This brings us to an important realization about aging in nature. It's not always about individual survival, but sometimes about how aging individuals can contribute to the survival of their communities, their species, or their ecosystems. In many social animals, older individuals serve as repositories of knowledge about where to find food during droughts, how to respond to predators, or how to navigate during migrations. Elephant matriarchs, for example, are crucial to their herd's survival during difficult times. Their long lives allow them to remember previous droughts and guide their families to water sources that younger elephants might not know about. Whale matriarchs serve similar roles, leading their pods to feeding grounds based on decades of accumulated knowledge. In many ways, humans have evolved one of the most extreme versions of this wisdom-aging strategy. We live far longer after our reproductive years than most other mammals, and this extended post-reproductive lifespan may have evolved specifically to allow older individuals to serve as repositories of cultural knowledge and wisdom. Your own aging, as you contemplate it there in your evening rest, is part of this grand tapestry of different approaches to growing older. You're aging in a distinctly human way, slowly enough to accumulate wisdom, quickly enough to make room for new generations, and socially enough to contribute your accumulated experience to your community. As you prepare for sleep, consider this: every approach to aging we see in nature represents millions of years of evolutionary experimentation. The immortal jellyfish, the ancient trees, the cancer-resistant naked mole rats, the time-traveling tardigrades, each has found its own solution to the challenges of existence over time. Your aging is equally remarkable, equally refined by evolution, equally part of the magnificent diversity of ways that life has learned to dance with time. You're aging exactly as millions of years of evolution have prepared you to age, not as a mistake or a malfunction, but as a conscious, social, wisdom-accumulating being whose longer life serves purposes both individual and communal. Sleep well, knowing that your particular way of aging connects you to this vast community of life, each finding its own path through the mystery of growing older in a world that is itself constantly changing and aging around us. Now, as the evening draws us deeper into contemplation, let's take a gentle journey inward, not just into the abstract concepts of aging, but into the very machinery of our bodies, where time writes its story in molecular ink. Imagine that we're explorers with impossibly powerful magnifying glasses, able to witness the intricate dance of aging as it unfolds at every level of our being. Picture this, right now, as you rest there in your quiet space. Millions of microscopic dramas are playing out within you, in your cells, your tissues, your organs. The patient work of aging continues, not as a single process, but as a symphony of interconnected changes, each playing its part in the larger composition of growing older. Let's begin our exploration in the bustling metropolis of a single cell, where we encounter one of the most fascinating players in the aging process, the mitochondria. These remarkable organelles are often called the powerhouses of the cell, and for good reason. They're like tiny power plants, taking in oxygen and nutrients and converting them into the energy currency that keeps every aspect of your body functioning. But here's where the story becomes both beautiful and bittersweet. The very process that keeps you alive also generates what scientists call free radicals, highly reactive molecules that are like tiny sparks flying off from the fires of cellular energy production. Imagine a blacksmith's forge, where the essential work of shaping metal inevitably produces sparks that can damage nearby materials. That's something like what happens in your mitochondria every moment of every day. These free radicals, with their unpaired electrons spinning frantically, seek out other molecules to react with. When they encounter important cellular structures, DNA, proteins, lipids, they can cause damage, like tiny molecular vandals spray painting graffiti on the walls of your cells. Over time, this oxidative damage accumulates, contributing to the aging process in ways both subtle and profound. Your body, of course, is not defenseless against this molecular mayhem. You possess a remarkable army of antioxidants, both those you make yourself and those you obtain from the foods you eat, that work tirelessly to neutralize free radicals before they can cause damage. Think of antioxidants as molecular peacekeepers, patrolling your cells and disarming potential troublemakers before they can cause harm. But here's the poignant reality: no defense system is perfect. Despite the best efforts of your antioxidant systems, some free radical damage inevitably gets through. It's like having an excellent security system that catches 99% of intruders. Eventually, the 1% that gets through can accumulate into noticeable damage. This gradual accumulation of oxidative damage may contribute to many of the changes we associate with aging: the stiffening of blood vessels, the clouding of the lens in our eyes, the gradual decline in organ function. It's not dramatic or sudden, but patient and persistent, like water slowly carving channels through rock. But oxidative stress is just one movement in the complex symphony of aging. Let's turn our attention to another crucial player: the gradual accumulation of damaged proteins throughout our bodies. Proteins are the workhorses of cellular life. They build structures, catalyze reactions, transport materials, and perform countless other essential functions. But proteins are delicate molecules, and over time, they can become damaged, misfolded, or simply worn out. Imagine proteins as intricate origami figures, each folded into precisely the right shape to perform its specific function. Now imagine that, over time, these origami figures begin to lose their crisp folds, becoming wrinkled, torn, or folded incorrectly. When proteins lose their proper shape, they lose their ability to function correctly, and in some cases, they can even become harmful to the cell. Your cells have sophisticated quality control systems designed to identify and remove damaged proteins, molecular recycling centers that break down worn-out proteins and use their components to build new ones. But like any recycling system, these cellular cleanup crews can become overwhelmed or less efficient over time, allowing damaged proteins to accumulate. This accumulation of protein damage is particularly evident in age-related diseases like Alzheimer's, where misfolded proteins form tangled clumps in brain cells. But even in normal aging, the gradual buildup of protein damage contributes to the slow decline in cellular efficiency that characterizes growing older. Another crucial aspect of aging occurs at the level of our genetic machinery itself. Our DNA, that precious library of instructions that makes us who we are, is constantly under assault from various sources of damage: radiation from the sun, chemicals in our environment, and even the normal metabolic processes of our cells can cause breaks, mutations, or other alterations in our genetic code. Fortunately, our cells possess remarkable DNA repair systems, like molecular librarians who constantly patrol the genetic library, fixing torn pages and correcting errors. These repair systems are incredibly sophisticated, capable of identifying and correcting many types of genetic damage with impressive precision. But once again, perfection eludes even these remarkable systems. Some DNA damage inevitably escapes repair, and over time, these genetic errors can accumulate. It's as if the library of our genetic information slowly accumulates typos, missing pages, and filing errors, gradually reducing the clarity and accuracy of the instructions our cells need to function optimally. Perhaps even more intriguing is the discovery that aging involves changes not just in the DNA sequence itself, but in how our genes are expressed, which genes are turned on or off, and when. This field, called epigenetics, has revealed that aging involves a gradual drift in the patterns of gene expression throughout our bodies. Think of your genes as an incredibly complex piano, with thousands of keys that can be pressed in countless combinations to create the music of life. Epigenetic changes are like the gradual alteration of this music over time, not because the piano keys themselves are broken, but because the patterns of which keys are pressed and when gradually shift as we age. Some of these epigenetic changes may represent adaptive responses to aging, attempts by our cells to compensate for accumulated damage or changing conditions. Others may simply be the result of the epigenetic machinery becoming less precise over time, like a pianist whose timing gradually becomes less exact after decades of playing. These molecular changes don't occur in isolation. They happen within the context of our organs and organ systems, each of which ages in its own characteristic way. Consider your cardiovascular system, that remarkable network of heart and blood vessels that has been beating faithfully since before you were born. Over time, the walls of your arteries gradually become less elastic, like rubber bands that have been stretched many times and slowly lost their snap. Your heart muscle may thicken slightly, and the electrical system that coordinates your heartbeat may become less precise. These changes happen so gradually that you might not notice them day to day, but they represent the patient work of time on one of your body's most essential systems. Your skeletal system tells a similar story of gradual change. Throughout your life, your bones have been in a constant state of remodeling, breaking down old bone tissue and building new tissue to replace it. But as you age, this balance slowly shifts. The breakdown process gradually outpaces the building process, leading to the gradual loss of bone density that characterizes aging. Your muscles, too, participate in this slow dance with time. Without regular use, muscle fibers gradually become smaller and less numerous. The motor neurons that control your muscles may become less responsive. The result is the gradual loss of muscle mass and strength that often accompanies aging, not inevitable or irreversible, but a natural tendency that can be slowed or partially reversed through exercise and activity. Even your brain, that magnificent organ of consciousness and memory, shows its own patterns of aging. Some brain cells are lost over time, though fewer than scientists once believed. More importantly, the connections between brain cells, those countless synapses where thoughts and memories are processed, may become less efficient or numerous. But here's what's remarkable about brain aging. In many ways, your brain becomes more efficient and interconnected as you age. Older brains often show increased activity in both hemispheres during cognitive tasks, as if they're recruiting additional resources to maintain performance. Many cognitive abilities, vocabulary, general knowledge, certain types of reasoning, often continue to improve well into older age. Your immune system, too, has its own aging story. Over time, your thymus gland, where immune cells mature, gradually shrinks. Your immune system may become less able to recognize and respond to new threats, while sometimes becoming more likely to mistakenly attack your own tissues. This immunological aging, called immunosenescence, contributes to increased susceptibility to infections and autoimmune disorders in older age. Yet, even as we catalogue these various changes, it's important to remember that aging is not simply the sum of accumulated damage and decline. Your body possesses remarkable abilities to adapt, compensate, and even regenerate that continue throughout your life. Your liver, for instance, retains an impressive capacity for regeneration, even in older age. Your skin constantly renews itself, replacing damaged cells with fresh ones. Your nervous system can form new connections and even generate new neurons in certain regions. Your muscles can respond to exercise by growing stronger at any age. This is one of the most hopeful aspects of aging research, the discovery that many age-related changes are not inevitable or irreversible, but represent the body's response to particular conditions or lifestyle factors. Changes in diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, and social connection can influence the aging process in measurable ways at every level, from molecular to physiological. As you rest there in your evening contemplation, consider this: your body is simultaneously aging and renewing itself right now. Cells are dying and being replaced, DNA is being damaged and repaired, proteins are being degraded and rebuilt. You are not a static being gradually wearing down, but a dynamic system constantly rebuilding itself, even as it slowly changes over time. The machinery of aging is incredibly complex, involving countless interconnected processes at every level of biological organization. Yet this complexity is also what makes aging so responsive to how we live our lives. Every choice you make, every meal, every walk, every moment of laughter or stress, ripples through this complex system in ways that can influence how you age. Sleep well tonight, knowing that even as you rest, the intricate machinery of your body continues its patient work, maintaining, repairing, adapting, and, yes, gradually aging, but doing so as part of a living system that remains remarkably resilient and responsive throughout the long journey of a human lifetime. As we settle deeper into our evening exploration, let's turn our attention to perhaps the most mysterious aspect of aging. What happens to the landscape of consciousness itself as we move through time? For while we can measure the shortening of telomeres and the accumulation of cellular damage, the changes in how we think, remember, and experience ourselves remain among the most profound and least understood aspects of growing older. Imagine, if you will, that consciousness is like a vast library. Not just any library, but one that's been growing and changing for decades. As you rest there in your quiet space, think about the library of your own mind. It contains not just facts and memories, but entire worlds of experience, emotion, and understanding that have been accumulating since your earliest days. Now, here's something remarkable about this mental library. Unlike any physical library, it doesn't simply accumulate books and leave them unchanged. Instead, every memory, every piece of knowledge, every experience continues to interact with every other piece, creating new connections, new insights, new ways of understanding. This is the dynamic, living nature of consciousness, always changing, always creating new patterns from the materials of experience. As we age, this library of the mind undergoes fascinating transformations. Some changes might seem like losses at first glance. Certain types of memory may become less reliable, processing speed might slow, new learning might require more effort, but other changes represent remarkable gains, deeper wisdom, better emotional regulation, enhanced ability to see the big picture and understand complex relationships. Let's begin our gentle exploration with memory, that most intimate aspect of consciousness. Memory is not, as we might imagine, like a filing cabinet where experiences are stored unchanged in labeled folders. Instead, memory is more like a living ecosystem, where each remembering actually recreates and subtly changes what is remembered. Every time you recall a memory, your brain essentially reconstructs it from scattered neural patterns distributed throughout your mind. It's as if your memories were like complex recipes that must be prepared fresh each time you want to experience them, using ingredients stored in different parts of your mental kitchen. This reconstructive nature of memory means that our memories are constantly evolving. The story you remember from your childhood is not the same as the story you would have told about that same event 10 years ago, or the story you might tell 10 years from now. Each remembering is influenced by everything you've learned and experienced since the original event, creating a rich, layered narrative that grows more complex over time. As we age, certain aspects of memory do tend to change. The ability to rapidly encode new information, particularly arbitrary facts or details, often becomes less efficient. It might take longer to learn a new phone number or remember where you put your keys. This type of memory challenge, often called working memory decline, can be frustrating and noticeable in daily life. But here's what's fascinating. Other types of memory often improve with age. Semantic memory, your knowledge of facts, concepts, and general information about the world, typically continues to grow throughout life. Procedural memory, your knowledge of how to do things, often remains remarkably stable. And perhaps most importantly, what researchers call crystallized intelligence, the accumulated wisdom and knowledge that comes from a lifetime of experience, often peaks in middle age or later. There's also something called the reminiscence bump, a tendency for older adults to have particularly vivid and detailed memories from their teens and 20s. It's as if these formative years, when identity and personality were crystallizing, leave especially deep imprints in the library of consciousness. But memory is just one aspect of the aging mind. Let's consider what happens to emotional experience as we grow older. Here, the research reveals some of the most encouraging findings in all of gerontology. In many ways, emotional life actually improves with age. Older adults tend to experience what researchers call positivity bias, a tendency to focus more on positive information and experiences while filtering out negative ones. This isn't because older people are naive or in denial, but because they've developed more sophisticated emotional regulation strategies over their lifetimes. Think about this for a moment. By the time you reach older age, you've experienced the full range of human emotions countless times. You've been happy and sad, excited and disappointed, angry and content, worried and at peace. This vast emotional experience provides a kind of perspective that younger people haven't yet had the opportunity to develop. Older adults often become masters of what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish between subtle variations in emotional experience. Where a younger person might simply feel bad, an older person might recognize the specific texture of disappointment, the particular quality of frustration, or the nuanced difference between worry and anxiety. This emotional sophistication often translates into better relationships and greater life satisfaction. Studies consistently show that older adults report higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction than younger adults, despite facing greater health challenges and losses. This phenomenon, sometimes called the happiness U-curve, suggests that there's something about the aging process itself that enhances emotional well-being. Part of this may be related to what researchers call socio-emotional selectivity theory. As people become more aware of their mortality, they tend to prioritize emotionally meaningful experiences and relationships over novel or potentially rewarding ones. It's as if aging brings a natural focusing of attention on what truly matters, a process that tends to enhance rather than diminish the quality of experience. The aging brain itself shows remarkable adaptations that support these psychological changes. Neuroimaging studies reveal that older adults often show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region associated with executive control and emotional regulation, when processing emotional information. It's as if the aging brain becomes more skilled at managing emotional responses. Older brains also show increased bilateral activation during cognitive tasks, using both hemispheres more equally than younger brains. This has been interpreted as a compensatory mechanism, where the aging brain recruits additional resources to maintain performance. But it might also represent a more integrated, holistic way of processing information that comes with experience and maturity. There's also fascinating research on what's called cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to maintain function despite age-related changes or even pathological damage. People with higher education, more complex jobs, stronger social networks, and greater lifetime mental stimulation tend to show better cognitive aging and greater resistance to dementia. This suggests that the aging mind is not simply declining, but actively adapting and reorganizing itself based on a lifetime of experience and learning. Your brain right now, as you listen to these words, is different from the brain you had 10 years ago, not just because it's older, but because it's been shaped by every book you've read, every conversation you've had, every problem you've solved, every emotion you've experienced. Consider the phenomenon of wisdom, something that almost universally is associated with age and experience. Wisdom isn't just accumulated knowledge, but something more subtle and profound, the ability to navigate complex human situations with insight, compassion, and good judgment. Researchers studying wisdom have identified several key components: cognitive flexibility, perspective-taking ability, emotional regulation, uncertainty, tolerance, and what they call epistemic humility, the recognition of the limits of one's own knowledge. All of these tend to increase with age and experience. Wisdom seems to emerge from the intersection of cognitive ability and emotional maturity, shaped by the accumulated experience of navigating life's challenges. It's as if the aging mind becomes increasingly skilled at pattern recognition across the complex domain of human experience, able to see connections and implications that might not be apparent to less experienced minds. There's also something profound that happens to the sense of self as we age. Young adults often experience identity as something to be discovered or created. They ask questions like, "Who am I? And what do I want to become?" Older adults more often experience identity as something to be maintained and integrated. They ask questions like, "How do I make sense of who I've been? And what does my life mean?" This shift toward what psychologists call generative concerns, a focus on contributing to future generations and leaving a meaningful legacy, often brings a sense of purpose and continuity that transcends individual mortality. Many older adults report feeling more connected to something larger than themselves, whether that's family, community, humanity, or spiritual reality. The aging mind also tends to become more comfortable with ambiguity and paradox. Where younger minds often seek clear answers and definitive solutions, older minds more often appreciate the complexity and uncertainty that characterize most important human questions. This tolerance for ambiguity can be seen as a form of cognitive sophistication that comes with experience. Even creativity, often thought to be the domain of youth, shows interesting patterns with aging. While certain types of creativity, particularly those requiring rapid processing and novel combinations, may peak in younger years, other types of creativity often flourish in later life. The creativity of older adults tends to be more integrative, drawing on vast stores of experience and knowledge to create works of greater depth and meaning. Think of artists like Georgia O'Keeffe, who continued creating powerful works into her 90s, or writers like Laura Ingalls Wilder, who didn't publish her first Little House book until she was 65. Their later works often show a distillation of experience, a clarity and depth that might not have been possible in their younger years. As you contemplate your own aging mind, consider this: you are not simply losing cognitive abilities as you age, but trading certain types of mental agility for other types of mental sophistication. Your mind is becoming less like a high-performance sports car and more like a wise, experienced navigator, perhaps not as quick to accelerate, but infinitely better at choosing the right direction. The consciousness that you experience right now, as you rest in your evening quiet, is the product of every moment you've lived, every thought you've thought, every emotion you've felt. It's a consciousness that has been refined and deepened by the patient alchemy of experience, shaped by both the losses and gains that come with moving through time. Your aging mind is not a diminished version of your younger mind, but a transformed version, like a piece of music that has moved from the bright, rapid passages of youth to the deeper, more complex harmonies of maturity. Both have their beauty, but the beauty of the aging mind is enriched by everything that has come before. Sleep well tonight, knowing that your consciousness continues to evolve and deepen even as you rest. Tomorrow you will wake with a mind that has been subtly transformed by tonight's dreams, tonight's rest, tonight's quiet contemplation of the mystery of aging itself. As our evening journey continues, let's wander down one of the most fascinating paths in human history, the long, winding road of our species' relationship with aging and our endless quest to understand, delay, or even defeat it entirely. For as long as humans have been aware of their own mortality, we have been searching for ways to extend life, to slow time's passage, to find that mythical fountain of youth that promises eternal vigor. Picture, if you will, the library of human attempts to understand and combat aging. It's a vast collection, spanning millennia and cultures, filled with everything from ancient mystical practices to cutting-edge molecular biology. As you rest there in your evening stillness, imagine browsing through this remarkable library where each book tells a story of human hope, ingenuity, and our endless fascination with the mystery of aging. Our story begins in the mists of prehistory, with our earliest ancestors who first became aware of their own aging and mortality. Archaeological evidence suggests that even Neanderthals cared for their elderly and infirm, indicating that the question of aging has been with us since the dawn of human consciousness. The ancient Egyptians, those masters of preservation and eternal life, developed elaborate procedures for mummifying the dead, believing that the physical body could be preserved for eternity. But they also sought ways to extend life itself. Ancient Egyptian papyri contain numerous prescriptions for restoring youth and vitality, involving everything from special diets to magical incantations. One particularly charming Egyptian anti-aging recipe called for mixing crocodile fat with the blood of a young person, ingredients that were believed to transfer the vitality of youth to the aging individual. While we might smile at such prescriptions today, they represent something profound: humanity's earliest scientific attempts to understand what causes aging and how it might be reversed. The ancient Greeks approached aging with their characteristic blend of philosophical inquiry and practical investigation. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, proposed that aging was caused by the gradual loss of innate heat and moisture from the body. His treatment recommendations included warm baths, gentle exercise, and moderate consumption of wine, advice that doesn't sound entirely unreasonable even today. Aristotle, meanwhile, theorized that aging was caused by the accumulation of some kind of waste product in the body. He believed that the heart was the center of vitality and that aging began when the heart could no longer maintain the body's essential heat. While his specific theories were incorrect, Aristotle was remarkably prescient in suggesting that aging might be caused by the accumulation of damage over time. Perhaps the most famous ancient approach to life extension came from the Chinese Taoist tradition, which developed elaborate practices aimed at achieving immortality. Taoist alchemists spent centuries experimenting with various elixirs and practices, believing that the right combination of herbs, minerals, and spiritual practices could grant eternal life. The irony, of course, is that many of these life-extending elixirs contained mercury, lead, and other toxic substances that likely shortened rather than extended the lives of their users. The Chinese Emperor Qin Shi Huang, famous for building the Great Wall and creating the Terracotta Army, reportedly died from consuming mercury pills that were supposed to grant him immortality. But Taoism also contributed more benign approaches to healthy aging, including the development of Qigong and Tai Chi, practices that emphasized the cultivation of life energy through gentle movement, breathing, and meditation. These practices, still popular today, represent some of humanity's earliest systematic approaches to aging gracefully. The medieval period brought its own fascinating approaches to life extension. European alchemists, following in the footsteps of their ancient predecessors, sought the elixir of life, a magical substance that would cure all diseases and grant eternal youth. The 13th century philosopher Roger Bacon wrote extensively about the possibility of extending human life through proper diet, exercise, and the use of various substances. Bacon believed that aging was caused by the accumulation of corrupt humors in the body and proposed that these could be purged through various treatments. He recommended the regular consumption of gold, dissolved in acid, the breath of young virgins, and various aromatic substances. While these specific recommendations seem quaint today, Bacon's systematic approach to studying aging laid important groundwork for more scientific investigations. The Renaissance brought a renewed interest in human anatomy and physiology, leading to more sophisticated theories about aging. The physician Paracelsus proposed that the human body contained a vital essence that gradually diminished with age, and he experimented with various chemical compounds to try to restore this essence. Luigi Cornaro, a 16th-century Venetian nobleman, took a more practical approach. After a life of excess left him ill and apparently dying at age 40, Cornaro drastically reduced his food intake and began living what he called a temperate life. He credited this lifestyle change with restoring his health and allowing him to live to the remarkable age of 98. His book, The Art of Living Long, was one of the first systematic approaches to healthy aging based on personal experience rather than theoretical speculation. The 18th and 19th centuries brought the beginnings of modern scientific approaches to aging. Benjamin Franklin, that polymath of the American Enlightenment, was fascinated by the possibility of life extension. He speculated about the potential for hibernation, like states that might slow aging, and even wrote about the possibility of being preserved after death until medical science advanced enough to cure whatever had killed him. The German physician Christoph Wilhelm Hufland wrote one of the first comprehensive scientific treatises on aging and longevity, called Macrobiotics, The Art of Prolonging Life. Hufland proposed that aging was caused by the exhaustion of what he called life force, and recommended various lifestyle practices to conserve and restore this vital energy. But it was the 19th century that really marked the beginning of modern aging research. The French physiologist Claude Bernard pioneered the study of the body's internal environment and how it changes with age. Charles Darwin's theory of evolution provided a new framework for understanding why aging might exist in the first place, leading to the evolutionary theories of aging we explored earlier. The 20th century brought an explosion of scientific research into aging. In the early 1900s, Elie Mechnikov, a Russian biologist who won the Nobel Prize for his work on immunity, proposed that aging was caused by toxic bacteria in the intestines. He recommended consuming fermented milk products like yogurt to promote healthy gut bacteria, an idea that seems remarkably prescient given current research on the microbiome and aging. Mechnikov also popularized the term gerontology, the scientific study of aging, and helped establish aging research as a legitimate scientific discipline. His optimistic belief that aging could be understood and controlled through scientific methods set the tone for much of the 20th century's approach to aging research. The 1930s brought one of the most significant discoveries in aging research: caloric restriction. Clive Mackay and his colleagues at Cornell University discovered that laboratory rats fed a severely reduced calorie diet lived significantly longer than rats fed a normal diet. This finding launched decades of research into the relationship between metabolism, nutrition, and aging. The caloric restriction research revealed something profound. Aging was not simply an inevitable consequence of time passing, but a process that could be slowed or accelerated depending on environmental conditions. Rats on restricted diets not only lived longer, but also remained healthier and more youthful in appearance throughout their extended lives. This discovery sparked intense interest in understanding the mechanisms by which caloric restriction extends life. Research has revealed that caloric restriction activates various cellular stress response pathways, enhances DNA repair mechanisms, and appears to slow many of the fundamental processes of aging. While the practical implications for humans remain under investigation, caloric restriction research has provided crucial insights into the biology of aging. The latter half of the 20th century brought increasingly sophisticated approaches to aging research. Leonard Hayflick's discovery of cellular senescence in the 1960s revealed that aging occurs at the cellular level, not just at the level of whole organisms. The development of molecular biology techniques allowed researchers to study aging at the genetic and biochemical levels with unprecedented precision. The 1980s and 1990s brought the discovery of genes that influence aging in simple organisms like nematode worms and fruit flies. Researchers found that mutations in single genes could dramatically extend the lifespan of these organisms, sometimes doubling or even tripling their normal longevity. These findings suggested that aging might be controlled by specific genetic programs that could potentially be modified. Cynthia Kenyon's work with C. elegans worms was particularly groundbreaking. She discovered that mutations in a gene called DAF2 could extend worm lifespan by up to 100%. Even more remarkably, these long-lived mutant worms remained active and healthy throughout their extended lives, effectively experiencing a prolonged youth rather than simply a prolonged old age. These genetic studies revealed that aging involves evolutionarily conserved pathways, molecular mechanisms that are similar across many different species. This suggested that research in simple model organisms might reveal insights relevant to human aging, accelerating the pace of aging research dramatically. The discovery of telomeres and telomerase in the 1980s and 1990s provided another crucial piece of the aging puzzle. Elizabeth Blackburn, Carol Greider, and Jack Szostak's work revealed a molecular clock built into our cells, providing a potential explanation for why cells age and die. This research opened up new possibilities for understanding and potentially intervening in the aging process. The turn of the 21st century brought even more dramatic advances. The completion of the Human Genome Project provided a comprehensive map of human genetic variation, including genes that influence aging and longevity. Researchers began identifying genetic variants associated with exceptional longevity in human populations, providing clues about the biological pathways that promote healthy aging. The field of regenerative medicine emerged, holding the promise of replacing or repairing aged tissues with young, healthy alternatives. Stem cell research suggested that many tissues retain the capacity for renewal throughout life, challenging old assumptions about the inevitability of age-related decline. The study of exceptionally long-lived populations, like the residents of Okinawa, Japan, or Sardinia, Italy, provided insights into lifestyle and genetic factors that promote healthy aging. These blue zone studies revealed common patterns among long-lived populations: strong social connections, regular physical activity, plant-based diets, stress management practices, and sense of purpose. Today, aging research stands at an unprecedented point of sophistication and promise. Scientists are investigating everything from senescent cell removal to genetic engineering to nanotechnology-based repair systems. Some researchers seriously discuss the possibility of dramatically extending human lifespan or even achieving what they call longevity escape velocity, the point at which life-extending technologies advance faster than we age. Companies are developing drugs that target specific aging pathways. Researchers are exploring the potential of young blood transfusions, inspired by studies showing that connecting the circulatory systems of young and old mice can rejuvenate aged tissues. Others are investigating whether certain compounds can mimic the effects of caloric restriction without requiring severe dietary restriction. The field of epigenetic reprogramming offers the tantalizing possibility of resetting aged cells to younger states, much like what happens naturally in certain regenerating organisms. CRISPR gene editing technology provides tools for precisely modifying genes associated with aging and longevity. Yet despite all these advances, aging remains fundamentally mysterious. We still don't fully understand why we age, how to measure biological age accurately, or which interventions will prove most effective in promoting healthy human longevity. The more we learn about aging, the more complex it appears to be. As you contemplate this long history of human efforts to understand and influence aging, consider this: you are living at a remarkable moment in this ancient quest. Never before has humanity possessed such sophisticated tools for studying aging, such detailed knowledge of its mechanisms, or such promising approaches for intervention. Your own aging is taking place against the backdrop of this extraordinary scientific adventure. The lifestyle choices you make, the medical care you receive, even your attitudes about aging itself are all influenced by thousands of years of human curiosity and ingenuity. And yet, for all our scientific advances, the fundamental questions about aging remain deeply personal and philosophical. How do we want to age? What does it mean to age well? How do we balance the desire to extend life with the acceptance of mortality? These questions can't be answered by science alone, but require each of us to engage with the mystery of aging in our own way. Sleep well tonight, knowing that you are part of this grand human story, a species that has never been content to accept aging passively, but has always sought to understand it, influence it, and find meaning within it. Your own aging is both a deeply personal journey and a participation in humanity's ongoing exploration of what it means to be a conscious, mortal being in an ancient and mysterious universe. As we approach the gentle conclusion of our evening journey, let's settle into what may be the most important chapter of all. Not the science or mechanisms of aging, but its deeper meaning, its hidden gifts, and the possibility of finding not just acceptance, but genuine beauty in the process of growing older. Imagine, if you will, that you're walking through a garden in late autumn. The fierce greens of summer have given way to golds and crimsons, russets and deep purples. Some might look at this autumn garden and see only decline. Flowers faded, leaves falling, the vital energy of spring and summer now memory. But there's another way to see this same garden, as a landscape of profound beauty, where the intensity of color and the poignancy of change create a kind of beauty that spring, for all its freshness, cannot match. This is perhaps the greatest invitation that aging offers us, to develop new eyes for beauty, new appreciation for the particular gifts that come only with the passage of time. As you rest there in your evening quiet, consider the possibility that aging is not just something that happens to us, but something we can participate in consciously, gracefully, even artfully. In many cultures throughout history, aging has been viewed not as decline, but as a form of spiritual development. The Hindu tradition speaks of life stages, with the later years dedicated to wisdom-seeking and spiritual growth. The elder years are seen as a time when one can finally turn attention from the external goals of career and family building toward the internal work of understanding life's deeper meaning. Buddhist philosophy offers the concept of the wisdom of impermanence, the idea that accepting the transitory nature of all things, including our own aging bodies, can lead to profound peace and understanding. In this view, aging becomes a teacher, constantly reminding us of life's preciousness precisely because it is limited. Indigenous cultures around the world have traditionally honored elders, not despite their aging, but because of it. The wrinkled face was seen as a map of experience, the slower gait as evidence of patience earned through years of living. Elders were the keepers of stories, the repositories of wisdom, the bridges between the world of the living and the world of ancestors. Even in our youth-obsessed modern culture, we see glimpses of this deeper appreciation for age. We speak of certain faces as weathered in a way that implies dignity and character. We value vintage wines, antique furniture, aged cheese, recognizing that some things improve with time, developing complexity and depth that cannot be rushed or artificially created. What if we applied this same appreciation to human aging? What if we learned to see the lines on an aging face not as damage to be concealed, but as evidence of a life fully lived? What if we recognized the slower pace of older age not as inefficiency, but as the natural rhythm of someone who has learned that life is not a race to be won, but a garden to be savored? Research in positive psychology has revealed some remarkable truths about aging and well-being. Despite the physical challenges and losses that often come with advanced age, studies consistently show that older adults report higher levels of life satisfaction, emotional stability, and psychological well-being than younger adults. This phenomenon, sometimes called the paradox of aging, suggests that there are genuine psychological and spiritual benefits that come with growing older. These benefits don't just compensate for the losses of aging. They represent new forms of human flourishing that are only possible after decades of living and learning. Consider emotional regulation, which tends to improve dramatically with age. Young people often experience emotions as overwhelming forces that sweep over them unpredictably. Older adults more often experience emotions as weather they can observe and navigate skillfully. This emotional wisdom doesn't come from declining feeling, but from decades of practice in understanding and managing the full spectrum of human emotion. Or, consider the phenomenon researchers call socio-emotional selectivity, the tendency of older adults to prioritize emotionally meaningful relationships and experiences over novel or potentially profitable ones. This isn't withdrawal from life, but a sophisticated form of curation, focusing energy and attention on what truly matters based on hard-won wisdom about what brings lasting satisfaction. The aging mind also develops what researchers call crystallized intelligence, the accumulated wisdom and knowledge that comes from a lifetime of experience. While fluid intelligence, the ability to process new information rapidly, may decline with age, crystallized intelligence often continues to grow throughout life. An older person may take longer to learn a new skill, but they bring to that learning a vast network of connections and understanding that can lead to insights unavailable to younger learners. There's also something profound that happens to the sense of time itself as we age. Young people often experience time as an endless resource to be spent or saved. Older adults more often experience time as precious and limited, leading to what researchers call temporal scarcity. While this awareness of limited time might seem depressing, it actually tends to enhance the quality of experience, making each moment more vivid and meaningful. This shift in temporal perspective can lead to what researchers call time expansion, the subjective experience that despite having less time remaining, each moment feels fuller and more significant. It's as if aging teaches us to extract more meaning and beauty from each experience, like learning to read poetry with greater depth and appreciation. Many older adults report a phenomenon that could be called existential lightening, a gradual release from the heavy concerns about identity, achievement, and social status that often dominate younger years. Having lived through multiple cycles of success and failure, gain and loss, older adults often develop a kind of perspective that allows them to hold life's challenges more lightly. This doesn't mean that older adults care less about life, but rather that they've learned to distinguish between what truly matters and what only seems important from the limited perspective of youth. Many report feeling more authentic, more comfortable with themselves, less concerned with others' opinions, as if aging has gradually stripped away layers of pretense to reveal something more essential underneath. There's also the phenomenon of generative concern, the tendency of older adults to become increasingly focused on contributing to future generations and leaving a positive legacy. This might manifest as volunteering, mentoring, creative work, or simply sharing wisdom and stories with younger family members. This generative focus often brings a sense of purpose and meaning that transcends individual mortality. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, observed that older adults often develop what he called self-transcendence, the ability to focus on something larger than themselves. This capacity for self-transcendence often increases with age and can become a source of profound meaning and satisfaction. The spiritual dimensions of aging are equally remarkable. Many people report that aging brings a naturally contemplative quality to life, a tendency toward what we might call spiritual reflection. This doesn't necessarily involve formal religion, but rather a growing sense of connection to something larger than oneself, whether that's family, community, nature, or cosmic mystery. Some describe aging as a process of spiritual distillation, the gradual clarification of what is truly essential in life. Like a fine perfume that becomes more concentrated and beautiful over time, the aging spirit often becomes more focused on love, beauty, meaning, and connection, while letting go of more superficial concerns. There's also what we might call the wisdom of limitations. Young people often experience their limitations as obstacles to overcome. Older adults more often learn to work creatively within their limitations, discovering that constraints can actually enhance rather than diminish creativity and meaning. The artist Georgia O'Keeffe continued painting until her death at 98, even after her vision deteriorated significantly. Her later works show a simplified, distilled beauty that might not have been possible without the limitations imposed by aging. The musician Johnny Cash's late recordings, made when his voice was weathered and his health failing, are considered among his most powerful and moving work. This suggests that aging doesn't just take things away. It also reveals new possibilities, new forms of beauty and meaning that might not have been accessible in youth. The aging voice may lose its youthful power but gain emotional depth. The aging body may lose its physical strength but discover new forms of grace. Many older adults report what we might call appreciative aging, a growing capacity to find joy and beauty in simple things. A sunrise becomes more vivid, a grandchild's laugh more precious, a conversation with an old friend more meaningful. It's as if aging gradually polishes our capacity for appreciation, teaching us to extract maximum meaning from minimal input. This enhanced appreciation often extends to the aging process itself. Many older adults report genuine gratitude for their aging bodies, even with all their limitations. They've learned to appreciate bodies that have carried them through decades of experience, that have healed from countless injuries, that continue to function despite accumulated wear. There's also the profound gift of perspective that comes with having lived through multiple cycles of change. Older adults have seen fashions come and go, technologies rise and fall, social movements ebb and flow. This gives them a kind of perspective on current events and social changes that can be both calming and wise. Having lived through previous crises, older adults often have a realistic but hopeful view of human resilience. They've seen problems that seemed insurmountable get solved, changes that seemed impossible happen gradually, relationships that seemed broken get repaired over time. As you contemplate your own aging process, consider the possibility that you are not just losing youth, but gaining something equally valuable: the opportunity to become a person who exists only through the patient alchemy of time. Your aging self is not a diminished version of your younger self, but a transformed version, shaped by every joy and sorrow, every success and failure, every moment of love and loss you've experienced. The wrinkles forming on your face are not just signs of aging, but evidence of expressions, laughter lines, concerned furrows, the gentle creases that come from years of smiling. Your changing body is not just wearing out, but adapting, continuing its remarkable work of keeping you alive and conscious after decades of service. Your aging mind is not just slowing down, but deepening, developing forms of wisdom and understanding that are simply not available to younger people. Your shifting priorities are not just signs of withdrawal, but evidence of sophisticated judgment about what truly matters in life. Perhaps most importantly, your aging connects you to the universal human experience in a way that youth, for all its vitality, cannot. Every human who has ever lived has aged, if they were fortunate enough to survive long enough. In aging, you join the vast community of all humanity across time. As we near the end of our evening exploration, let this thought accompany you toward rest. Aging is not something that happens to you, but something you participate in. How you age, with grace or resistance, with curiosity or fear, with acceptance or denial, becomes part of who you are. You have the opportunity to age consciously, to find meaning in the process, to discover the particular gifts that come only with the passage of time. Your aging is a form of becoming, not becoming young again, but becoming something even more precious. A human being who has learned to live fully within the beautiful constraints of mortality, who has discovered that limitation itself can be a teacher, and who has found that the autumn of life can be every bit as beautiful as its spring, just in completely different ways. And so, dear evening companion, our gentle journey through the mystery of aging draws to a close, like a favorite melody reaching its final satisfying notes. Do you remember where we began? I asked you then, where in this vast world you were joining me, what time it was in your corner of the universe. Now, as the minutes have passed and we've wandered together through the landscape of time and biology, I wonder, has time felt different during our exploration? Has this hour moved quickly or slowly for you? It's curious, isn't it, how time can stretch and contract depending on what we're thinking about. Here we've been, contemplating the very nature of time's passage through living things, and perhaps time itself has felt different as we've done so. This is one of the small magics of consciousness, our ability to step outside the flow of time, to contemplate it, to find meaning in it, even as we remain forever subject to its gentle, inexorable current. Thank you for joining me on this quiet exploration. Thank you for bringing your own questions, your own experiences of aging, your own relationship with time and change to our shared contemplation. There's something beautiful about the way individual consciousness can meet and commune over these universal experiences, the way your aging and mine, though utterly unique in their details, share the same fundamental patterns that connect us to every living thing. As you prepare to return to your evening, wherever in this world you may be, carry with you this thought: you are not merely a passive subject of aging, but an active participant in one of life's most profound processes. You are aging exactly as millions of years of evolution have prepared you to age, not as a failure of design, but as the culmination of countless successful experiments in what it means to be alive over time. Every cell in your body that divides tonight, every protein that gets repaired, every memory that gets consolidated during your sleep, all of these are part of the ongoing miracle of conscious aging. You are simultaneously the product of every moment you've lived and the source of every moment yet to come. Your aging connects you backwards through time to every human who has ever wondered about growing older, and forward through time to everyone who will continue this ancient contemplation. You are part of a conversation that began with the first conscious awareness of mortality and will continue as long as consciousness exists. In aging, we touch something larger than ourselves, the deep patterns that govern all life, the cosmic processes that create stars and planets, and the time within which all existence unfolds. We are stardust that has learned to contemplate its own temporary arrangement, matter that has become conscious of its own journey through time. There is profound beauty in this temporary arrangement we call a human life. Like a sand mandala, created by Tibetan monks, magnificent in its detail, yet destined to be swept away, our aging lives are masterpieces precisely because they are impermanent. Every day we remain conscious, and aging is a gift beyond measure, the gift of being able to experience existence itself, to love and wonder and question and grow. So sleep well tonight, dear friend, knowing that your aging is part of the largest story ever told, the story of how the universe became conscious of itself through beings like you and me. Rest in the knowledge that every night's sleep and every morning's awakening is a small miracle, a continuation of the extraordinary experiment of conscious life unfolding through time. May your dreams be peaceful, your rest be deep, and your tomorrow be filled with the quiet wonder that comes from knowing yourself to be part of the magnificent, mysterious, ongoing creativity of existence itself. Good night, and thank you for sharing this time with me. Until we meet again in some future evening's contemplation, may you age with grace, with curiosity, and with the deep contentment that comes from understanding your place in the great dance of time and consciousness that surrounds us all. Sleep well, dear evening wanderer. The mystery of aging continues its patient work while you rest, writing tomorrow's story in the language of cells and dreams, and the eternal now that is always beginning again. Good night.